Hey everyone, I just want to give you a couple reminders before today's podcast. Make sure to check out millennialleader.org and sign up for our newsletters. And check out our blogs. I'm posting pretty regularly on there. If anyone's interested in guest posts, please feel free to get a hold of me. My email is millennialleaders@gmail.com. In today's podcast, I get the opportunity to share the story of Marcus O Malley. We talk about a couple of really fascinating things, but one of the things that really excites me about this conversation is Marcus really loves to dive into the minds of leaders and those that work for them. Marcus is very involved with the whys and the hows, why people do what they do and how they do what they do. And by understanding that information, we can be better leaders.
Welcome to the Millennial Leader Podcast with Carlos Reyes, encouraging and equipping a generation to lead.
Super excited today. Have a good friend of mine, Marcus O Malley, with me on the show. Welcome, Marcus.
Hey, thanks, Carlos.
I'm excited to have you because I think you really do have an amazing story, some amazing twists and turns. I'd love for you to go ahead and share from the beginning your story and how we've gotten to know each other.
Yeah, so Carlos and I got to know each other through BNI. It's a business networking group, and Carlos came to visit and really loved hearing his story and what he's doing and how he's connected with leaders. And we wanted to get together, and we got lunch, and shared some of my stories. So I started a company called Emerge Technologies as a senior at James Madison University. And out of that, we were starting a software and web development company, and one of mine was a follower of Jesus. And through seeing his journey and his story, I actually reached out to him, and he shared his faith with me, and it made sense, and I accepted Christ in 2007. And about a year and a half later, the company was doing very well, but I really felt like there was something bigger that I could be a part of. And so I sold everything, including the business and car, everything that I owned, and moved to Cape Town, South Africa. Got to share my faith and experience entrepreneurs that were starting businesses, youth that were looking for leaders. They were hungry in the country of South Africa. About 60% of the country is 16 years or younger, and they're just hungry for mentors, for leaders, for guidance in how to start businesses, how to do life. And so I spent a year there, and then came back in 2010. Started another company, and I ended up joining up with Emerge Technologies again about a year ago. They had been purchased, and I've come on board and helped leading the web division of the company.
Amazing. I don't want that. I don't really want that to get lost. You started a company at James Madison doing something that you found you were pretty good at and had to do with web development, but just clarify for us, it wasn't the actual development end of it. Am I right?
You're right. So I actually was part of a team. We flew out to Microsoft, got to meet and see Bill Gates speak and speak after him. And so we had a team of developers that wanted to make the world a better place. We came up with a concept for airport security to get better through technology. And it was sort of that passion that led into us starting to develop ideas for education, how to help teachers in the classroom. But my role began to shape, and I found myself able to connect with people, to have my technical background. I was a computer science degree at JMU, to use that technical background, but to be able to communicate with people and bring those two disciplines together.
I love that we're in the similar vein as I think we're both entrepreneurs. You, of course, have created something. I'm fiddling and still playing around with some stuff. I would love actually to touch on that because that's something my heart is very passionate about. And I think I've mentioned in previous podcasts that it's been in the last year or so where I've been thinking about making something from scratch. I think that most millennials today are beginning to move in that direction. I think statistically something like 60% of millennials, don't hold me to that stat, but tell me, how did you start in this whole entrepreneurial thing? Why did you start your own thing? Why didn't you just decide, well, I'm going to find a job working for maybe Microsoft?
Yeah, so Microsoft spoke with us. Actually, Accenture was pursuing me at JMU, and I told them, I said, well, it's easiest to risk everything when you have nothing.
Amen.
And so So I decided, let's take a shot. I don't know that I'll have the energy, the excitement that I do as a young person coming out of college. It'll be a cheaper MBA program than paying JMU to do it. Let me take my shot.
I love that, by the way. Cheaper.
Cheapest MBA program you'll ever find is trying to start your own business.
And of course, through that process, you hired a couple guys.
So 3 of us from that Microsoft team thought we had some pretty good ideas, thought we had some good energy coming out of college, and decided to jump ship. We had a couple of buddies that were much better from a communication standpoint, had a little bit of sales experience. We were very young, and so we tried to get as strong a team together as we could. We utilized a small business development center. They're a great free program that's national. They have mentors there, advisors there that will help young entrepreneurs figure out how to get a business started. Really had some strong mentors in the business community. I reached out to a lot of business owners and just said, hey, how'd you figure this out? What did you do? How'd you figure out pricing? Put a strong advisory board together, a couple of good friends that I knew that had started web or technology companies. And we just got together on a monthly or quarterly basis and just brainstormed, just said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think?
Now, how did you know to go in all those different directions?
Well, SBDC was something that JMU recommended, so I connected with them first, and they sort of helped me with a checklist and sort of here's how to become successful in business, build an advisory board. So I talked to my team and said, who's someone really smart that that you trust? Give me those names, and I got a pool of names from each guy and even friends of mine that I knew. I said, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. I know your dad's in technology. Would he be willing to take that time? Got my kind of top 10 list, my hit list, picked a handful of them that I really thought would help us get where we're going in different disciplines. So one was kind of a business guy. One worked at JMU. He was in the computer science department, had worked for IBM, had some big business experience. Another guy was more of an entrepreneurial, more of the sales driver. And so I just wanted to kind of have a different group of people, not the same people that were just saying, oh, you're doing a great job. I wanted real people that would ask hard questions of me.
That's great. And I'm going to link to the Small Business Development Center
Yep.
In the show notes because I think that's a great resource.
Yeah, and they're in every city, as far as I know, at least most major cities. There's someone within range, so you'd probably be able to find somebody in that group near where you are.
Yeah, that would be amazing, actually.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about in the last podcast with a friend of mine, Jamie Jackson, was this idea of finding mentors. How did you go through that process?
Yeah, that's a great. I always think that you should have someone a couple steps ahead of you, someone at the same spot you are, and someone a couple steps behind you. So I always try to seek to have people in each of those areas in my life to encourage me, to challenge me. They're a couple steps ahead, and someone that I can share my experience with, kind of pay it forward behind me. As far as mentors, as far as people a couple steps ahead of me, there's a ton of networking groups that are out there. C12 is one I looked into. It's a Christian leadership group. There is BNI. It's a networking group for business owners, so you get the opportunity to meet people in business. I've used LinkedIn and connected with people that I saw were in the technology field and just try to connect with them like, hey, I'm trying to grow this business. I see you're pretty far ahead of me. How did you get there? Would you be willing to grab coffee? Let me pick your brain. And then I've just kind of spent that time when I've been with them and said, who is someone that I really want to emulate? Who's someone that is where I want to be professionally, personally, spiritually, and I want to just go after them and seek after their life.
And is it as simple as asking them?
It can be. A lot of people don't know how to find a mentee and don't realize how much time they have available to them. If you're willing to show that hunger, that drive, they may see something of themselves in you as much as you see where you want to be in them.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I love to talk about when people ask me about mentorship is, well, what if they say no? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's absolutely okay. Yeah, embrace it and move forward because no is a part of life.
And if they're so busy, I was just going to say, if they're too busy, that's probably not going to be a good fit anyway, because you may be able to meet with them once and they're just rushed. Find someone that wants to take the time to have that mentee-mentor relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to transition over into this idea of leadership. My passion for this website, Millennial Leader, is encouraging and equipping this generation to lead. And a lot of that has to do with just understanding and having the knowledge and information to do that. Part of that's like, how do I get a mentor?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's as simple as asking somebody.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not. Can you just sort of speak to your leadership development?
So my dad is probably a big reason why I'm an entrepreneur. He is very much a solutions-driven person. Figure it out. How did you? Here's a problem. Figure it out. And so I think he drove me to that entrepreneurial spirit, which I have, which is like, here's a problem, fix it. I think from the mentorship standpoint, that probably really came on strong in college. Had some good professors that really talked to me about business development, that talked to me about growth. One of them came on our board, Malcolm Lane. He's a previous director at the computer science department at James Madison. And then after college, as we were starting the company, I really just fell into people as I networked, as I connected, and they had a desire. They reached out to me. They would ask me, how are things going? And I would pursue them with questions, how can I do this better? What are your thoughts on this? And people were hungry to respond to me because, someone's seeking to kind of come after them. So I would say you need that hunger, much like in a relationship, you have to pursue them. You have to, develop a relationship of trust and a desire and to be where they are, and respect for their time as well, I would say.
Yeah, I know we all appreciate when somebody has respect for our time. I think most of us are more willing to engage with somebody when they have all their stuff together and it shows that they do respect our time. They're ready to go. So,
and if you listen to them, if they give you advice and you come back the next week and ask for the same advice and haven't shown that you've listened to them, that you've tried, that you've stumbled on, and said, I've tried this, I've tried that, it hasn't worked, what do you think? Then I don't think that's very respectful of what they're offering to give you.
Yeah, great wisdom there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What type of leader would you consider yourself?
So I love this vision of a boat. I think I use it a lot because unfortunately a lot of my team are not sports fans. So I've gone to this vision of a boat, and I got this great visual from someone recently called OAR, or ownership, accountability, responsibility. And I just love that picture of own the problem. It's not about blame. It's not about how did we get here. It's how do we fix this problem? How do we row this ship into success? We are going to fail. We're going to miss. We're going to turn the wrong way. The ocean's going to push us a certain way. We're going to row inconsistently as a team. But how do we move forward? And I just love that image of a ship and having those oars and each of us at it, owning, being held accountable, and taking responsibility for solutions, for fixing a problem.
Do you view yourself as sort of the captain, directing everybody around, or are you grabbing the oar and showing people?
I prefer probably to follow my father's footsteps. I think people are each different. I think they do things very well, differently than I do. And so I prefer to be more of a hands-off, and when there's a problem, I want to fix it. So I tend to be more of, how's it going? What's going on? If you're stuck in the mud, let's take a look at the problem. I think people learn better. They become more autonomous that way, which is more valuable to them. And I tend to only come in when I see issues, or if I see us coming off course, maybe to say, hey, how can we fix this? We're going in circles. Maybe we should try and sync up with someone on the other side of the ship and row forward. I'm a big believer in Philo, first in, last out. I think having that work ethic to kind of be the first person to jump on the difficult things, the things no one else wants to do, and at least sort of get us moving in that. And the last out, being there at the end of the day, closing a day out, closing a project, doing the difficult tasks is something that's very important to me, I think, for a leader that I look at and that I want to be.
That's great. First in, last out. I mean, I'd love to hear if you're willing to share a sort of a breakdown of your day. I know some leaders will say they like to tackle their hardest issue of the day first thing in the morning. Some of us like to do our quiet time first thing in the day. Tell me sort of, if you're willing, where you're in that scope.
Yeah, so I'm a quiet time person. Usually even before I have breakfast, I just want to kind of have my quiet time, get in the Word, just have a little bit of quiet time to kind of take pause, get perspective. before the day starts on how big the world is, and as many challenges are going to come my way. There's a lot bigger story, a lot bigger things going on. I'm definitely a tackle issues first. I like to get some of those either out of the way or know that it's going to be a bigger undertaking out the gate, and then usually by a little bit later in the morning, I want to kind of get my people time in and check in on everybody on the team, make sure there's no issues that I should know about or things like that, and then coast-ish toward the end of the day, although it's rarely that I get to do that, but the easier things as lunch goes by.
Yeah. I think we're similar in that way, as I like to tackle biggest issues in the morning. I don't know, I feel more driven and energized sort of in that morning slot from 9 to noon, 9 to 1, and then as the day goes on, boy, you just end up becoming more and more drained.
Yep.
And it's hard to focus and be disciplined and finishing out strong. What do you think of that concept? I've actually read a couple of interesting books. One of the ones that I'm really enjoying right now is Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Stephen Covey, the book, The Speed of Trust, and he talks about to earn trust, we need to finish out strong. What do you think about that idea of finishing out strong?
Oh, I think it's critical. A lot of things are easy to start. Finishing, I think, makes a difference between good and great. So having attention to detail, turning in a polished product, typically happens at the end of something. And so you really got to rise up, get that energy, get that towards the end of the day. If you're going to turn something in, deliver something to a client, you want it to have your name on it. It's your brand that you're representing. And those lazy misses because you want to turn this in and close out your day can really make or break you as an entrepreneur, as a leader. To show that, go home, send your people home to their families on a positive note, having accomplished something or having at least a quality thing to turn in at the end of the day is critical.
I think you're absolutely right. Did you learn all this pre-Africa, post-Africa? I'd love to hear how spending time in Africa, did that affect your leadership in any way?
Had a huge impact on perspective. I think before I left, I thought I could work a 120-hour work week and get more done. I don't think that's true. I think you need your rest time. I think you need your time with your family. I think you need your time on the weekends to decompress. You've got to clock out mentally, physically, do life. Make sure you're doing something that you enjoy and re-energizes you. Because all you're doing by trying to work a 7-day work week is draining your battery and then never recharging it. So play hard and work hard is something that I definitely got from Africa.
Yeah. What type of balance, you say, is there an exact number to it? 60 hours work and then, weekend is play, or how do you find that balance?
It's really difficult. I would say I've not mastered it. I definitely, Sunday is kind of my day. I don't work. I don't respond to emails. I try and leave even my cell phone away from me as much as I can on a Sunday, at least get a full day off. Saturday can kind of go either way. I try to protect that. But things come up, things need to get done. And so you just got to kind of jump in where things are needed. But I at least have one day where I can kind of completely check out, and not work. I need that full day. I try to clock out in the evenings. Occasionally things will come up, but I try to really at least have a time where I can check out, turn the phone off, put it away, and enjoy my time with my family and friends.
I struggle with it too. I think everybody can relate to that. Trying to check out at my father-in-law, he's just like, forget it. I'm going to turn my phone off, and he actually turns it off. I don't know if I'm courageous enough to jump in there, but I think you're right. Conceptually, many of us know that we've got to find time for rest. Even as connected as we are as a generation, you need to find that rest. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. So we're you have spent some time in Africa, and of course post-Africa is giving you a lot of perspective. I love traveling abroad just for that reason, is that it helps you refocus life and give you perspective about the world you live in, the things we deal with. I know it's the funny joke, right, is first world problems.
Right.
And so, the escalator's broken. We've got to walk up the escalator.
Yeah.
What?
Which phone do we have to decide on?
Right, exactly. Too many choices. So We're post Africa, though. Tell us where you are now. You're heading back to the United States.
Yeah, so I came back to the States, and I definitely had a Capetonian approach to life. They are family centric, community centric. Work is just something you have to do during the day between family time and community time. So I started my own business just to kind of have a little bit of income. I started doing websites. My dream was to figure out a way to get Oprah or someone to pay me my salary so I could do websites for free and just help people start businesses, nonprofits to get on the web, and just create a way for individuals to get on the web. And so that was kind of how I relaunched my web business. My hope was to get to that point. Oprah ignored my calls and emails. And so I had to eventually figure out a way to charge people and pay the bills.
We joked in the last one podcast, boy, when you got to pay those bills, you get real motivated to find something. Did you hear about Facebook, something about drones, hovering drones over Africa to make sure that the world is connected?
No, I haven't heard about that one.
You'll have to Google that one. I think I saw it this morning.
Okay.
It's just, it's amazing, the ingenuity of the world we live in. How do you, today, how do you continue to develop those skills? Are you doing any type of active leadership training?
So our company does a leadership training involving recruit, select, training, motivate, and manage. It's a series done by an organization out of Charlottesville that trains people in recruiting and selection process, how to train people, and then how to manage the individuals and motivate them in terms of different behavioral characteristics. So we have a test that we do when we bring people on board that helps us to understand behavioral desires. I'm a high vector 1, which means I'm very motivated. I'm very driven by results. I have a desire to get things accomplished. Other people may be higher in sociability. A lot of our sales team will be high in the social area. And so this training I do through my company. It's been very helpful for me, kind of an eye-opener that, not everybody learns the same way. So the way I learn isn't necessarily the best way to train someone that has a different behavioral type, not as driven. They need more documentation, or they're much more detail-oriented, so they want, step-by-step process of how to do things.
I love this subject. I'm really thankful that you brought it up, because we talked about it last time. I think we grabbed lunch. This
Yes.
idea of how people learn, or how people are motivated, or how they take leadership. Would you suggest that to everybody? I mean, understanding how people take things in can be significant in how they interpret your leadership. Would you say that's correct?
If you're in leadership, you need to know how to lead others, whether it's through a professional training or just in your learning process. I think everyone learns and follows differently. There was a great example that was done in the training, and they mentioned how Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw each won 4 Super Bowls. Bill Walsh, who was coach of the 49ers at the time, was a very detail-oriented person. He gave the playbook play-by-play to Joe Montana and said, here's the plays we're going to do for the entire game. This is how we're going to win. Terry Bradshaw was a very motivated, driven, I can do this myself. And the coach of the Pittsburgh, who's escaping me his name right now, but he was very laid back. And so Terry Bradshaw was able to be himself and win games. They were both successful, but it had to do with the leader and the follower being on the same page.
So if we don't, though, have access to a test like this, how would we figure something like that out? How, let's say the person we're working with or the person that works for us, how would we figure that out? Is it personality-based?
It doesn't have to be. It can be trial and error. Just like anything in life, I think, you have to experiment, but don't make assumptions, I guess, is kind of the biggest thing to come in. Don't make assumptions that the way you learn will make them successful. have the conversation with them. How am I doing as a leader? What would motivate you more? What are you after? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And how can I help you get there? I think if you're focused on the other person, that's going to be a great place to start. I think the system we use is very scientific, so it's just a little bit more detail, but it could be figured out with as simple as just having that conversation and trying to study those that are following you and where they're trying to get and how can you help best get them there.
I think you said something really important there is finding a way to win-win. I know that, and this probably isn't just exclusive to millennials, but many of us are looking for the win-win solution. We're not necessarily looking for the competitive win-loss, sacrificing the relationship to win at all costs. Would you say that you found that to be the case, or have you found something completely different?
No, I'm absolutely on the win-win situation. A lot of times with my team, probably on a weekly basis, especially with a couple of my leaders, I just check in with them. What's going on? How are you doing? What are the worst parts of your job? What do you wish you weren't doing? And what do you wish you were doing more of? And how can we continue to shape your job into one that helps you be successful? Because success is going to keep you happy. It's going to keep you motivated. It's going to make you enjoy your work more and make you a more successful person, which will make our entire company more successful. So I think that, understanding that win-win is critical. When it comes to leading, when it comes to sales, if you're a business owner, you obviously want a happy customer. It doesn't do you any good to get a check and have unhappy customers because your business isn't going to last that long.
No, it won't. You better have an amazing product.
Right.
For that to be the case.
Yeah.
I imagine that going in and having that conversation with the people that are working for you and your team, there must have to be a high level of trust. Can you talk about trust organizationally?
Yeah, trust is critical, and I would say, there's almost a trust curve that everyone really needs to anticipate. Not everyone is going to trust you when they come on board, and that's something that you need to make every new client or every new employee or follower, whatever organization that you're in, feel as important, as proud that they're on your team as they are to be a part of your company or organization. I think that's just critical to make them feel important, to make the time, because whether you make the time now or later when they leave or are disgruntled or unhappy, you're going to use that time. And I'd rather use it in a positive fashion, make their lives better. It will make my life better and our organization run more effectively.
Yep. I think you're absolutely right. And thank you for just mentioning that. We have to many times we have to hear that. And I'm thankful for that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in our training, we actually talk about the quantifiable expense of losing someone, and how does that happen? From the hiring process, from your first interaction with someone, you are having an impact on how much they feel valued by you. And so when you lose them, morale, is down. You're downcast because you feel like you failed. Invest that time in the front end in your relationships. It's worth it.
So practically, how would you go about investing to develop that?
I'm a very process-driven person, so I actually write that down. I have to create processes for myself because I'm big picture, very non-detail oriented. So I have to create systems. I put little reminders on my calendar, check in on the team. Have you checked in on this person or that person in the last week, 2 weeks, month? Make sure you stop by each person's office, and I have to hold myself accountable with a system like that, even from the relational standpoint, just like I would in a sales or any other quantifiable way that I track myself in the business. The relationship part of it is something that I track.
I love how well you know yourself. Was this all based on leadership tests that you understood how you operate best, or is this something you've come to understand over the years?
It's something that I actually find really interesting. I think it probably started when I read Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink, and I've read several other books. I'm very analytical of myself and others. I think it's probably one of my strengths and weaknesses, 2 in 1. But the strength part of it is definitely that I really study people. Are they happy at their job? I just have that innate desire to understand what are people doing, how are they doing it, and just a desire to get better in that area.
Very cool. I think that's very cool. So you said Malcolm Gladwell's Blink?
Blink is one of them. He's also written a couple others that are really powerful. Blink is actually more about marketing, but it made me understand the human mind. So one of the examples that he talks about in there is that in New York, there was a new commissioner that came in, and they were having some rough times with gangs and things like that. And he came in there, and the first thing he did was paint the walls to get rid of graffiti. And everyone thought he was crazy. Why would you waste all this money on getting rid of graffiti? What does that even do? It's nothing to do with crime. And what they noticed was crime began to have a huge decrease. All of a sudden, they would come back and they would repaint, the walls with spray paint, and the police would come back in and paint it over. All of a sudden, crime started to begin to decrease because the atmosphere had changed, the culture had changed. And that, along with tons of other examples in that book, really makes me think, why do people do things? What makes them happy? What makes them successful? Why do they buy a certain product? Why do they do certain things? And a lot of it has to do with emotion and just being happy, just being satisfied, being motivated. And so if my employees are motivated, we'll do a better job. If my customers are happy, they'll refer us. They'll help my business grow. And so I just, from that and other books like it, just began to think more about people and emotion than just trying to come up with a good product.
Wow, all good things. I'm going to check that out. Malcolm Gladwell's Blink. Interesting. I think it's fascinating too. I mean, we kind of take, I think, that question for granted. Why did somebody do what they did? And, what was the purpose? What was it they were trying to seek, or what was the question they were trying to answer? And
he talks about the success of a liquor company based on the shape of the bottle. People began buying their product because it had a cool looking shape. The things we take for granted can sometimes, those details can make or break a company or a leader.
It almost seems so trivial, right? I mean, the shape of a bottle.
Absolutely. It makes no sense, but it's a fact.
Amazing. Well, very cool. Do you have any resources? You've given me Malcolm Gladwell here's Blink. Is there any resources that are your go-to resources or that you would recommend for others?
I really love Darren Hardy. Has an email that goes around in a blog. He's a publisher of Success Magazine, and I really love his email chain. They're simple. It's usually a monthly thing, sometimes a little bit more than that, and it's just really powerful. It's usually couple hundred words, so it's easy to read, but usually leaves a mark on me throughout the week. If you're getting started, I love entrepreneur.com. They have tons and tons of articles, people writing stories about having started businesses, just people sharing, ups and downs as far as starting business, sales, leadership, motivation, those type of things. I love that website, especially for people starting a business. And I'm going to throw you a curveball. I actually got this out of, I think it was Time Magazine. Read fiction. Why fiction? It makes no sense. Well, what he talks about, and I've actually seen several articles about this since I've been doing some research since then, it changes the way you think. The way that fiction writers write tells a story about the way that these characters are thinking. And so in a nonfiction book, you're just getting facts and do this, do that, this is how you'll be successful. In fiction, you're actually getting into the mind of this writer and his characters as you're reading it. And it changes the way you think about people and changes the way that you think about how people think. And so I've taken that on, and it actually even helps me as a reader. When I'm reading nonfiction books, I get momentum out of reading fiction books because I'll get into the book, it's exciting, there's energy, and then I put that down, I pick up my nonfiction, and it helps me as a reader. I'm a faster reader, process things differently, think about things differently. And so it's really changed the way I think about fiction books.
All right, I'm gonna test you on this one. Read fiction, okay? Because I have a hard time reading fiction. I'll be honest.
I did too until I read that article, which made me think maybe I should read these more in the intention of using them in a professional manner and changing the way I do things.
Is that how you convinced yourself to read them?
It is. And it works.
Cool.
It works for me.
Very cool. I love entrepreneur.com. That again, has got a bunch of great resources. But I'm going to give that a shot. Reading fiction, and then you said Darren Handy's blog.
Hardy.
Hardy. Okay, cool.
And I'll send you the links. I'll forward you a couple of them.
Awesome. Yeah,
I may have even sent you one of his links without you even knowing it. I think I sent you a link a couple weeks back that was one of his.
Yeah, I know you sent me one for a small startup.
Okay.
Is that right?
I think so. I'll have to send Darren Hardy. I sent a leadership one around to a couple of friends, one of my favorites that he had posted. I'll pass that on to you.
Very cool. Yeah, and I'll add all this sort of in the show notes if people want to take a look and give a click and check out that resource. Awesome. You know, one of the last things I like to ask people when they're on the show with me here, and I say show, but it's just Carlos in his bedroom. What's an action step that people can take today to develop their leadership?
Yeah, so I would say kind of that find someone to follow and find someone to follow you. I feel like I learn as much from my mentors as my mentees. So some of the young people ask these questions. I'm like, wow, it's so easy, but it's easy for me because I'm 32 and I've done a little bit of life compared to a 22-year-old, and so learning through them, getting perspective, like, wow, these challenges that I face are probably not as hard as I think. I just haven't experienced them yet. And so having a mentee to lead is something huge, and having a mentor to follow. And I'll tell you the best advice that I've gotten is fall down, screw up, plan for it. You're going to fail. Know it's coming. Know life is not going to be perfect. Starting a business is not going to be perfect. Leading anything is not going to be perfect, but start something. Find out what you're passionate about, start something, do something, let it fall, and begin to learn what falling's all about. And everyone that's made it anywhere failed at some point in their life and probably continues to fail. So just anticipate that and embrace it.
That is probably some of the best advice I've ever heard. I was actually just reading today, Warren Buffett, when he puts out his management report, he's the first one to call himself out and said, hey, my intention was this $1 million, $1 billion acquisition, and I blew it. And if Warren Buffett can make that many mistakes.
I love it. I love his honesty, too. I really like Warren Buffett. He just has that personality to be like, yep, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's see what happens.
That's right. Oh, I mean, he's messed up $1 billion deals, and he's thankfully made, $1 billion deals themselves. And of course, I have lots of sports friends who use the analogy to be a successful baseball player, you only hit the ball 3 out of 10 times.
Absolutely.
So failure is built in. Marcus, I really appreciate you coming and spending some time with me. It's good to talk to you, my friend. I know lots of people will get great information out of this podcast, and I know we'll catch up soon.
Carlos, great talking to you, man. Look forward to getting together for lunch here soon, and I'll send you a bunch of those things, and look forward to watching the rest of the leaders that get on the site.
Hey, quickly, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm probably one of the worst social media millennials, but I love LinkedIn. So I'll give you my email address. I usually connect with people through LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to stay in touch with me and the tool that I follow the most.
Very cool. Well, send it to me. I'll pop it in the show notes, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Carlos. Take care, man.
Bye.
See you.